At Christmas, my mom set up a separate poor kids table for my children in the garage. When I asked why, she said, "They ruin the aesthetic of our family photo." I quietly stood up, took my kids' hands, and left. They had no idea I decided to end the $380,000 house loan I'd been paying for them. At 11 p.m., Christmas Eve, my mom's house in Naperville, Illinois. The kind of house that smells like cinnamon pine cones and silent judgment. I was balancing a foil pan of scalloped potatoes on my hip while my son, Eli, 8, tugged my sleeve. "Mom, where do we sit?" My daughter, Sophie, 6, was behind him holding her little reindeer purse like it was a shield. I stepped into the dining room and my brain did that involuntary counting thing. 8 chairs. 8 place settings. 8 name cards in glittery cursive. None of them said Eli. None said Sophie. My sister, Mallory's kids, were already in their seats, loud and sticky and allowed to be loud and sticky. My dad was at the head like he owned oxygen. My mom stood by the sideboard smoothing her sweater like she was about to be photographed for a catalog. I smiled automatically because my body still tries to keep the peace even when my brain is screaming. "Hey," I said, "where are the kids sitting?" My mom didn't look surprised. That was the first warning. "Oh," she said lightly, "we set something up for them." "For them where?" I asked. Mallory looked up, lips pinched. "Don't make it weird, Paige." My mom walked over and touched my elbow like she was guiding a stranger out of traffic. "In the garage," she said. I blinked. "In the garage?" "It's heated," she added quickly like that fixed it. "We put a little table out there." Eli heard every word. His shoulders went stiff. Sophie's face did that careful neutral thing kids do when they're trying not to be a problem. I leaned down. "Hey, bud. Go stand by the tree for a second, okay? Don't open anything yet." Eli nodded too fast. Sophie didn't move until Eli moved like he was her cue. I kept my voice calm. Why would my kids eat in the garage? My mom's smile stayed on, but it went thinner. "Paige." I waited. Mallory snorted. "Because your kids are a lot." Eli came back 2 steps like he couldn't help it. "I'm not a lot?" I lifted a hand behind me without looking. A quiet stay. My mom finally said it. Soft voice, reasonable voice, the voice she uses when she's doing something cruel but wants credit for being polite. "They ruin the aesthetic of our family photo." My mouth went dry. I looked past her at the dining table, the matching plates, the napkin rings, the little place cards like we were having Christmas dinner at a wedding venue. Then I pictured my kids in the garage under the fluorescent light eating off a folding table like they were the help. My hands went cold. I said, "So my children can't sit with the family because of a picture?" My mom's eyes narrowed like I was being dramatic. "Don't do this. It's one meal. We want it to look nice." My dad finally spoke without looking up from his drink. "Your kids can handle it," Sophie whispered, "Mom." That tiny voice snapped something in me. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the potatoes. I didn't argue. I set the foil pan down on the counter very carefully like I didn't trust my hands. I walked to my kids, took both their hands, and said, "Coats on. We're leaving." Eli's eyes went wide. "But presents." "We're leaving." I repeated. My mom's voice sharpened. "Paige, stop. You're making a scene." I looked at her and said, "No, you did." We were at the door when my mom called after me, sweet as syrup. "Fine, go, but don't come crying when you can't afford things." My brain counted again. Not chairs, not plates, numbers. $380,000. Because they had no idea what I'd just decided. At 11 p.m., I was going to end the $380,000 house loan I'd been paying for them. I'm Paige Renshaw, 34, a project manager for a logistics company in Downers Grove, Illinois. I make decent money, not new SUV every year money, but I pay my bills and my kids' daycare doesn't bounce money. I'm divorced. Ryan left when Sophie was 2 and decided child support was more of a suggestion than a legal obligation. I have the court order. I have the arrears notice. I have the text where he said, "I'm not funding your lifestyle." My lifestyle being shoes that fit my children. My parents, Linda and Tom, have always loved the idea of family. Not the messy part. The picture part. My mom collects family moments like trophies. Christmas card photos, Matching outfits, everyone smiling like we aren't actively bleeding. When I was a kid, my mom had one main rule: don't embarrass us. When I got pregnant with Eli at 25, unmarried, my mom didn't yell. She did something worse. She got quiet. Then she said, "We'll get through this, but you need to be smart about what people see." That was my introduction to the family religion. Optics. When I was 29, my parents called me on a Tuesday night. Dad's voice was tight. "We need help." Mom cut in fast. "It's temporary." I drove over after the kids were asleep, sitting in my car in their driveway with my stomach in knots because I already knew what help meant. Inside, they slid paperwork across the kitchen table like they were presenting evidence. Dad had taken out a loan to renovate their house, the forever house my mom called it, and then his hours got cut, and then they missed payments, and then the bank started sending letters. My mom pressed her hand to her chest. "We can't lose the house," Dad said. "We just need someone with better credit to refinance, just for a while." I remember the exact words my mom used. "You're our only option, and we've done so much for you." Which was technically true in the way people are technically alive while drowning. I asked, "How much are we talking?" Dad swallowed. 380. I laughed once because my body didn't know what else to do. $380,000? Mom got that tight smile. "It's the mortgage." "The bank won't you want me to take on your mortgage," I said. "Not take on." Mom corrected quickly. "Just help. You'd be on paper. We'd pay you back." They promised me everything. They promised they'd sell Dad's boat. They promised they'd stop spending. They promised it would be for a year, maybe two. They promised I'd get equity. They promised, we're family. I was stupid enough to want to believe them. So, I did it the way responsible people do stupid things, with documents. I met them at Harris on May 14, 2020. I have the appointment confirmation email still. I signed a refinance that put the loan under my name because my credit was clean and theirs was bruised. Monthly payment, $2,746.19. Auto pay, my checking account. The repayment, inconsistent transfers labeled house with amounts like $400, $600, sometimes nothing for 2 months. I swallowed it because I told myself it was temporary. It wasn't. 3 specific moments made the pattern impossible to ignore. Incident 1, Thanksgiving 2021. My mom pulled me aside and whispered, "Eli is getting too loud." He was 7. He was laughing. Mallory's kids were literally throwing rolls at each other, but Eli was mine, so he was the problem. Mom said, "Can you take him downstairs when we do the video?" The video was my mom filming Dad carving the turkey for Facebook. Eli heard. His face changed. He went quiet. Later that night he asked me, "Do they like me?" I told him, "Of course they do." And hated myself for lying. Incident 2, Easter 2022. Sophie was 4 and had a meltdown because her tights itched. Normal kid stuff. My mom crouched down and said, "If you can't behave, you can't be in the pictures." Sophie sucked in her tears like she was swallowing them. Eli put his arm around her without thinking, like it was his job to buffer her from adults. That made my throat burn. Incident 3, Christmas 2023. My mom sent me a text 2 days before. "Mom, Linda, please dress the kids in neutrals. No loud colors. We want the photos to look cohesive." I stared at it for a full minute. "Neutrals for children?" I replied, "Okay." Because I was still in the phase where I thought compliance bought safety. It didn't. And the whole time I kept paying. Every month my bank app would show it. Mortgage servicing, $2,746.19. My kids would be eating cereal for dinner and I'd be paying for my mom's granite countertops. I thought it was temporary. It wasn't. After the garage table thing, we went home to my apartment in Lisle, a 2-bedroom with mismatched furniture and a Christmas tree that leaned slightly left. Eli and Sophie didn't understand. Sophie asked, "Did we do bad?" I crouched down in front of her and held her cheeks gently. "No," I said. "You did nothing wrong." Eli looked at me like he was older than 8. "Did Grandma say we ruined stuff?" My chest tightened. Grandma was wrong. He swallowed. Did she mean my face? That question made my hands shake. I hugged them both and said, "You are perfect. You are mine and nobody gets to put you in a garage. They went to bed eventually, still confused but trusting me like kids do when they have no choice. At 9:17 p.m. my phone lit up. Family group chat. Renshaw Christmas. My mom started fast. I can't believe you made a scene in front of everyone. Mallory, drama queen. Dad, we were trying to make things nice. You always twist it. My brain went cold and clear. Wave 1 was guilt. Wave 2 was threats. At 9:32 p.m., my mom texted me privately. Mom, Linda, remember, we have the house because of you. Don't do anything you'll regret. That line sat wrong because the truth was they had the house because of me, yes, but not in the way she meant. They had it because I'd been paying. I opened my email and searched mortgage. My inbox filled with statements and confirmations every month like a heartbeat. I opened my bank app, auto pay scheduled for the first of every month. I went into my desk drawer and pulled out my folder, the one I started building without admitting it to myself. Inside, the refinance documents with my name highlighted, screenshots of my parents will pay you back texts, a spreadsheet I'd made of every payment since 2020, notes from a call with the loan servicer from last year when I asked how to remove autopay, just in case. I'd labeled the folder house in thick black marker, like I could keep it contained by naming it. At 10:05 p.m., Mallory called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail anyway because my family loves talking at you. Paige, you're embarrassing. Mom is crying. You always make everything about you. The kids were fine in the garage. It was cute. Cute? A folding table in a garage was cute? At 10:22 p.m., my dad texted. Dad, you can't just stop helping. We'd lose the house. There it was. Not sorry, not we were wrong, just you can't stop. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I did something I'd been avoiding for years. I asked for a concrete answer. I texted my mom one sentence. Why did my kids have to be hidden for the photo? She didn't call. She didn't apologize. She typed, Mom, because people notice things. We wanted it to look like our family is doing well. I read it 3 times. My kids were things, and my mom cared more about how her life looked than how my children felt. That's when I stopped arguing and started documenting. At 10:41 p.m., I took screenshots. At 10:44 p.m., I forwarded the messages to my email and saved them into the folder. At 10:50 p.m., I opened the loan servicer website and logged in. My hands were steady. That scared me more than shaking. At 10:58 p.m., I looked at the time on my stove clock and felt my whole body go still. Because at 11 p.m., I was going to do the quiet, irreversible thing. At 11 p.m. exactly, I called the loan servicer. I put the phone on speaker, not because I wanted anyone to hear it, but because I wanted my hands free. A man answered with a cheerful voice like he worked at a bakery, not a company that owned my stress. Thank you for calling. How can I help? I said, I need to remove my bank account from autopay. He asked the security questions. I answered them like I was reading a grocery list. He said, Are you sure? This may result in missed payments. I'm sure, I said. He paused, the first human hesitation in the conversation. Okay, he said slowly. Autopay is now cancelled. I felt my body react like a release valve. Not relief, not joy, just a cold settling. Then I said, I also need to update the contact email and mailing address on the account. He did it. My parents had been receiving copies of statements like they were co-owners of my sacrifice. Not anymore. After the call, I opened my email and wrote a message to my parents. Not a paragraph, not a speech, one clean sentence because they thrive on chaos and I was done feeding them. Subject line mortgage. Body effective tonight. I am no longer making payments on the mortgage for 1467 Willow Crest, and all communication will go through my attorney. I send it to Mom, Dad, and Mallory. Then I did the second part, the part I avoided because it made it real. I emailed the attorney I'd consulted 2 months earlier just to understand my options. Her name was Dana Feldman and her last email to me said, You're not trapped. I forwarded her the screenshots. I wrote, Please draft and send formal notice and begin the process to protect my credit and recover what I've paid. Then I opened my kids' school portal and updated emergency contacts. I removed my parents' both schools. I replaced them with my friend Tasha and my neighbor Mr. Ochoa, the retired guy who always waves and actually earned trust. When I was done, it was 11:23 p.m. My phone started lighting up like a warning system. Mom calling, Dad calling, Mallory calling, then the texts. Mom Paige, answer me right now. Dad, this is insane. You can't do this to us. Mallory, you're going to make us homeless because you're sensitive about a table? And then finally, the moment where my mom lost the mask. Those kids are ruining everything. You're ruining everything. You owe us. I stared at that message until it blurred because she said, those kids. Not your kids, not my grandkids. Those kids. Like they were stains. At 11:41 p.m., there was pounding on my apartment door. Hard. Urgent. Angry. Eli sat up in bed, panic in his voice. Mom? Sophie started crying immediately. The silent kind where she tries to hold it in. My body moved without thought. I locked my bedroom door, turned on the hallway light, and checked the peephole. My dad, red-faced. My mom behind him with her coat half on, like she'd thrown it over her shoulders without buttons. My dad shouted through the door, open up. I didn't. My mom's voice turned sweet again, like she could rewind reality if she sounded nice enough. Paige, honey, don't do this. Think about what you're teaching the kids. I laughed once, quietly, because the irony was so sharp it almost felt like pain medication. I raised my voice just enough to be heard. You don't come to my home at midnight. Leave. My dad banged again. We'll talk like adults, I said. Adults don't put children in garages. Then, I did the third irreversible step. I called the non-emergency police line. I didn't say, my parents are evil. I didn't dramatize. I said, someone is pounding on my door and refusing to leave. My children are inside. An officer arrived 20 minutes later. I watched from the peephole as my mom tried to perform grief. The officer's tone was firm and bored, the best kind. Ma'am, you need to leave the property. My mom tried, I'm her mother. The officer said, doesn't matter. My dad pointed at my door like I was an object. She's doing this to us. The officer didn't care. Go. Now. They left, but not calmly. My mom turned as she walked away and said loudly, meant for the hallway, fine. Enjoy ruining your life. I closed the deadbolt and stood with my back against the door, breathing through my nose like I was trying not to throw up. Eli whispered from behind me, are we in trouble? I turned around and knelt. No, I said. We're safe. Sophie hiccuped. Grandma's mad. I know, and that's not your job to fix. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I regretted it, because I knew something important. When people benefit from your silence, your boundaries feel like violence to them. The next morning, Christmas Day, my apartment was quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar. No phone buzzing every 5 minutes, no driving somewhere to be judged, no matching sweaters, just my kids in pajamas eating cinnamon toast and watching cartoons too loud. Eli laughed at a dumb joke on the TV and Sophie laughed with him, real laughter, not careful. At 10:14 a.m., Dana, the attorney, emailed me. Notice drafted. We'll send certified today. Also, keep all contact in writing. I printed it and slid it into the house folder. 2 days later, my mom tried the soft apology tactic. She left a bag on my porch, wrapped gifts, a tin of cookies, a note in her handwriting. The note said, we love you. Let's not let one misunderstanding ruin family. Misunderstanding? Like my kids accidentally wandered into the garage by themselves? I didn't bring the gifts inside. I took a photo of the bag on my porch with the note visible and emailed it to Dana, because everything is evidence now. Mallory tried the next tactic, the guilt-laced voicemail. Mom's health is bad. Dad can't sleep. If they lose the house, it'll be on you. I listened once, then deleted it. Not out of spite, out of clarity. My parents losing their house wasn't because I got sensitive, it was because they built a life they couldn't afford and used me as the hidden support beam. A week later, my dad sent a text that finally admitted the truth without meaning to. Dad, what do we tell people when they ask why the payments stopped? That was the moment I knew I'd made the right choice. Not, how do we fix this? Not, how do we apologize to the kids? Not, how do we make it right? What do we tell people? I replied with one sentence, the same kind of sentence I've been using since Christmas Eve. Tell them the truth. Then I blocked him. Not forever, maybe. Not because I hate him, because I'm done letting my children be the price of admission to my parents' approval. Eli asked me one night while I tucked him in, "Are we still going to see Grandma?" I didn't lie. "Not for a while," I said. He nodded slowly. "Okay. I like it here better anyway." Sophie from her bed said, "We have a kitchen table." "Yeah," I said, throat tight. The real values are clear. Children come before appearances, generosity needs limits, and financial help should never cost your dignity or your child's sense of worth. Real family is not the group that looks best in a picture, but the people who make sure every child feels wanted in the room.